Everywhere I go, I meet people obsessed with population growth who say this is the thing which is destroying the living world. It is white people blaming brown people for a problem being created primarily and overwhelmingly by rich white people. There are some people who every day use as much resource and as much fossil fuel as a small African town does. But that's not the people we choose to defer the problem onto. No, we're choosing to defer it onto poorer people of colour in other nations and saying they're the problem because they are having too many babies. And it's true that all other things being equal, a higher human population exerts more environmental pressure than a lower human population. There are particular issues, particularly some local issues to do with habitat destruction, with urban space, which can be strongly affected by population. But to use it as a blanket explanation of all the environmental problems we face, including climate breakdown, including resource extraction, is to grossly misrepresent the situation. And this taps into a very deep vein of racist paranoia, which has been operating now for hundreds of years, where rich white people say, we are being overwhelmed, we are being outbred by them, and they're diluting the genetic stock. A classic example was Winston Churchill in 1943, who blamed the Bengal famine in India, a famine in which 3 million people died, on, to quote, those people breeding like rabbits. He blamed it on people having too many children. The reality was there was plenty of food in Bengal. There was enough food in Bengal. There wasn't even a serious drought. But the British, under Winston Churchill, were extracting the food from Bengal and using it to help furnish the soldiers in the war effort, to the extent that they caused 3 million people to die of starvation. It was a completely politically generated famine. This as an example of pure Malthusiasm. Thomas Malthus, an English clergyman in the late 18th century, claimed that it was ridiculous to give people food relief or poor relief because that would just encourage them to breed more. We have to cut them off to discourage them from breeding, and that will eventually solve the problem. And this has been picked up again and again by politicians all over the world. The Nazis were great enthusiasts, but so were a large number of English public figures, and they are to this day. For instance, when the Conservative Work and Pensions Secretary, Ian Duncan Smith, tried to impose a 2-child rule, that we're going to reduce your benefits if you have more than 2 children, because he genuinely believed that giving people benefits would encourage them to breed more, just as Thomas Malthus did. And all this becomes sharpened by some new research published in 2020 showing that we're likely to see peak population now as early as 2064, after which it will start to decline, and that the population is likely to peak far lower than many people claimed. 23 nations will see their populations halve by 2100, and those populations will be overwhelmingly dominated by older people because so few children have been born. So some people are saying, well, yes, I sort of accept what you're saying, but it's the overpopulation in countries like ours which is the issue. People coming into the country, that's where the problem lies. I am population, they are overpopulation. The over comes from immigration. That's the story. Now, one of the very interesting things about the demographic transition, about the change in the global fertility rate, which is happening with extraordinary speed, is that before very long, countries will certainly be concerned about population. They'll be concerned about falling population because there won't be anyone to keep the health service going. There won't be anyone to teach the children. There won't be many children to teach. There won't be anyone to look after the old people. And so this so-called immigration crisis that we're told we suffer from at the moment is actually keeping the country alive. And when that so-called immigration crisis stops, then we'll see what the real immigration crisis is, not having immigration. What the whole obsession with population is about the denial of our common humanity. It's about othering the people from other nations, people of different colours, people of different cultures, and saying they are overpopulation, we are population, they are the problem. And their very existence is a problem. And that all ties into the narrative of those other people are coming over here and they are invading us and they are swamping us. And this is how We can demonise people to the extent that we would rather see them drown at sea than grant them safe haven on our own shores. One of the reasons I work with Double Down News is it's one of the very few broadcast outlets for big ideas. I can't get this stuff on the BBC or indeed any other mainstream broadcaster. If you want to talk about the big normative questions, Double Down News is the place to do it. So please support Double Down News through Patreon and allow these big issues to be aired.